Good morning. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show for March 11th. Pretty much the NBA is playing second fiddle to March Madness right now with all the conference tournaments. But we're in a situation here still with a 9-game slate, but it's a Saturday NBA slate. We know what that means, Adam. Bunch of news, bunch of unexpected news. But here we are to break down Saturday slate. How are you doing on this Saturday?
Pretty good. And yeah, it's weird because we didn't have any slate more than I think 8 games during the work week. And then we get 9 on Saturday when normally you have 4 to 6. So yeah, probably going to be a shit show. Like you said, we typically get random news halfway through Saturday. You get teams just resting. So probably going to be one to, obviously going to be one you have to pay attention to the news later, but probably going to look quite a bit different than it does this morning.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And Saturday NBA is just a different beast in its own game. But here we are. They're humans. They're probably maybe hungover, don't want to play. They check out as well. So here we are. We're going to go ahead and get started on this Saturday slate. And also, if you guys are joining us this morning, thank you so much. Hit that like and subscribe button as usual. And make sure to give Adam a follow. Feel free to give me a follow on our respective Twitter handles where you can find that on the screen there. But first game is first. We're going to talk about Indiana going to Detroit. Indiana's favored here in a very favorable Detroit spot. With Indiana, they're coming in not with that much projected ownership on DraftKings. A little bit of a different story over there on FanDuel as guys like Andrew Nembhard and Jordan Nwora are getting some ownership. We're dealing with some injury situation with questionable TJ McConnell and I believe questionable Miles Turner. And definitely key injury news there where if Miles Turner's out, it's going to definitely open up some potential front court minutes. In the Indiana side, I mean, Halliburton can certainly pay off a 10-2 price tag in Detroit, but it's difficult. There are eight other games on this spot. Bunch of studs, but it's a Detroit spot where certainly Indiana guys can be certainly great. Halliburton's out. I'm going to look to expected more usage for guys like Buddy Hield. And if McConnell plays, if McConnell's out, maybe some extra minutes for Nembhard, but can't justify the Nembhard ownership on FanDuel. It's a tasty Indiana spot against Detroit. How do you feel about attacking Indiana tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good spot. The pricing is the issue. And you mentioned the Q tag on Turner, Halliburton questionable as well. So certainly the potential for this to just turn into a dumpster fire where you have when you have Halliburton questionable and McConnell questionable and Turner questionable, like this is a spot that certainly could look quite a bit different later on in the day. But assuming those guys are in, I don't think there's anything to truly prioritize here, despite the good matchup, because we have seen Tyrese Halliburton's price tag jump up to $10,200. And this slate is a little bit different than the other day when he was like 30% owned, because for one, there's more games. And for two, on that slate, you didn't have any real top tier options. Whereas today, you do have better payoff options. So Halliburton, if you can get there in tournaments, like great. He still gives you a high ceiling. He's playing big minutes. He gets a ton of assists. He's been shooting a bit more. He didn't shoot well last game. I don't think he made his first 3 in that game until overtime. But you're getting a very high ceiling. It's just more difficult when you have a larger slate. You have the very high salary on him. And then, for example, today, assuming Giannis plays, you have him as just like another tier. You have Tatum, you have Irving, you have Curry. There's just a little bit more competition around Tyrese Halliburton. Miles Turner always looks fine in tournaments, but his ownership his salary rather is pretty much where it should be as well. Buddy Hield is okay if you land on him as a last piece in. Jordan Nwora went back to the bench last game, still played 23 and a half minutes, but I don't think you can expect that to be the norm. I expect, like 20 to 22 minutes on average. Sometimes he'll pick up a couple of more. So it's a good game environment. It's a good matchup. If you land on some of these guys, fine, but there's nothing that stands out as a priority just because the prices are pretty much correct.
No, I think that's an excellent point there. And it's a situation where I'd probably be less inclined to get anywhere above the field on a guy like Jordan Nwora. If I fall within a couple percentage of the projected ownership on Nwora, that's fine. I know he's very, very scoring dependent in my opinion, so I want to proceed with caution there. But we'll see how that develops. But I just want to give everyone a special shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. They're the reason why we get to do these shows very often throughout that week. So please support them. Check out that exciting deposit bonus that we have. Link in the bio. Producer Jacob could potentially drop that in the chat for us. That'd be great. But definitely check out our presenting sponsors, Prize Picks, as well. And hit that like and subscribe button. And then I'm going to move on to the Detroit side of things here, because Detroit's a very interesting situation that's breaking down tonight, where they pretty much are sending it, pretty much ending entering the Wembanyama sweepstakes full send. Not that they were in it to start the season, but today, no Bojan Bogdanovic, no Alec Burks, no Jaden Ivey. And no Jaden Ivey is the new recent development here, where there's going to be even more usage to be opened up for a very shorthanded, shitty team in Detroit, and where I think guys like Killian Hayes, James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley are going to be core components of our lineups. Marvin Bagley is right now projected around north of 40% on FanDuel. Comes in pretty low owned on DraftKings, but it's tough to justify $1,600 price tag. But Wiseman and Hayes, I think you can definitely look to them. Wiseman's looked good. I would like him to get a little bit more consistent minutes, like 30 plus, like confidently. I know Jalen Duren's back in the picture, so that's some reason to proceed with caution there. But there's no Ivy, there's no Burks, there's no Bogdanovic. The backcourt's going to open up for Hayes, Corey Joseph, RJ Hampton. Rodney Magruder's going to play some. How do we navigate this Detroit team? I think a good pace matchup against Indiana.
Yeah, it's a really good matchup. One thing we do need is a starting lineup here because Killian Hayes returned last game. He came off the bench. Assuming he starts, he's going to look really good because you're just going to get more production from him without Ivy and Bogdanovic, and he's only 5K. If he comes off the bench, he's clearly riskier because you don't know what they're doing with his minutes. Like if he comes off the bench, he could still play 24 to 26 minutes, but there's no guarantee he is. And obviously, even at as cheap as 5K is, if he plays like 18 minutes, you're in trouble. But assuming for now that Hayes starts, he's going to look really good. We've talked about him before, and kind of in a similar way that we talk about Jaden Ivey when he's in. Killian Hayes is about a fantasy point per minute guy without Ivy, Bogdanovic, Cunningham on the floor. And that's on the back of like 39% true shooting. The guy cannot shoot to save his life and still averages a fantasy point per minute. So it kind of just speaks to how high that ceiling is when, he's still going to have random games where he knocks down some shots. And in those games, he's just going to put up massive numbers because he does get so many assists. He's still able to average, a fantasy point per minute despite shooting poorly. He's played 355 total minutes without Ivy, Bogdanovic, or Cunningham on the floor, 21.5% usage rate, but a 37% assist percentage, 1.04 DraftKings points per minute, 1.08 FanDuel points per minute. He's going to look really good if he's in the starting lineup. Right now, we have him projected to start. We have him pulling like 29% ownership. I don't really have an issue with that, assuming he's in the starting lineup. Corey Joseph probably plays more minutes here. He is 4,600 though, so that makes him more difficult to get to than when he was, 3,300 or whatever. He's played 531 minutes without these guys on the floor. Still only 0.78 DraftKings points per minute. If he were to start, he becomes more interesting, but still not. Like Corey Joseph as a starter is nowhere near as interesting as Killian Hayes when Killian Hayes starts. RJ Hampton, 3,200 off the bench, should get plenty of playing time. Played about 17 minutes last game. I'd expect a bit more here, in addition to no Ivy, still no Burks, still no Diallo, of course, still no Bogdanovic. So there's a lot of minutes that can be funneled toward RJ Hampton. He's not a great point per minute guy either, but at 3,200, he, is an interesting value play. Magruder at 3,400, not a good point per minute guy. Minutes should be there, but you're kind of just, hoping he knocks down wide open threes. As far as the front court, it's kind of messy. You have a $5,800 price tag on Wiseman, 4,800 on Duren. Wiseman pulling about 12% ownership, Duren pulling 4%. In Duren's first game back, we saw Wiseman stay in the starting lineup. He played about 27 minutes. Duren played about 21. We did also see early foul trouble for James Wiseman. So I don't know what the plan is going forward. Like, are they really going to play Wiseman 28 to 30 minutes in non-foul trouble games and only give 18 to 20 to Duren? Or is it that was Duren's first game back and now you're going to see, a 24-24 split or 25-23, something like that. So the minutes are certainly risky here, but there is still upside for Wiseman at 5,800 because if he does play 28 to 30 minutes, he's going to look good. Similarly for Duren, not getting any ownership at 4,800. If he plays, let's say for one reason or another, he gets, extra couple minutes here, plays like 23, 24 minutes. He has a path to success as well. So I certainly wouldn't play those two together, but I think they both offer some tournament upside. Bagley's difficult for me to get to at 6,800. I don't have a good feel for his playing time now that Duren's back. We saw 48 minutes combined between Duren and Wiseman as expected. And the rotation prior to Duren coming back was that Bagley and Wiseman's minutes were staggered. So you were getting those backup minutes for Bagley, kind of just locked him into X amount of minutes. Now the only minutes he's getting are going to be the ones at the 4. We got like 22 last game. or 21 last game. But that was a game where he just like didn't play basically the entire second half. If he's playing well, he certainly can play more, but I'd still only expect around, like 28 to 30 minutes in most cases for him. He's at 1.16 DraftKings points per minute without Ivy, Bogdanovich, or Cunningham. The point per minute production is there, but that price tag is really tough to justify.
No, definitely. I'm going to be very tuned in to see. I believe this game is on the live final slate. And I want to give a special shout out a couple of the guys who lead the show behind the scenes here, especially Steve Buzzard, aka the Colts, and Eddie Lai, 1-800-EDDIE, to obviously one of the best DFS players pretty much ever. They'll be competing and representing Stokastic at the live final. And I want to give a shout out to Jay Carr. I believe he's going to the hockey live final. They're all in Denver this weekend. So I think Detroit's going to be a huge piece of the live final. And whatever chalk bust in Detroit, I think will give a big leg up on the field, whoever gets lucky there. So we'll see how that navigates. Just want to give them a special shout out and good luck. Hopefully one of those guys takes it down tonight. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on to Miami and Orlando?
No.
All right. Keep an eye on our news. Keep an eye on the news for the starting lineup, like Adam indicated earlier there. But here we go to the Miami and Orlando game. And it's the return of Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry hasn't played in a long time. And that's going to change up the rotation a little bit. This team is on a back-to-back. And that's going to change things up. Duncan Robinson's questionable. Is Kyle Lowry coming in the picture? I do not expect him to be playing full minutes whatsoever. So he's $4,500, comes in at $4,800 on FanDuel. Not really an option, but he's going to take away those backcourt minutes that were there given to Gabe Vincent. He was manning a lot of those minutes. And Kyle Lowry was not taking up much usage when he was on the court, playing more of a facilitation role here. But in an Orlando spot, the rest of this team is kind of appealing. I still like going to Bam at 7,800. I like going to Bam at 8,400. Jimmy Butler comes in at $8,700 and $9,200. He's fine, but I think if I had to pick a Heat player, I'm going to Bam in this spot. Tyler Hero certainly has that upside with a 3-point bonus, $7,200. No issues going to him. While Kevin Love's minutes have been all over the place. He comes in at 46 and 4,500. We know he can have those outlier fantasy point per minute games, but at 46 and 4,500, I'm still going to be skeptical here. How do you feel about this Miami team not getting much ownership at all? It makes for a very, very, very appealing tournament team, in my opinion.
Yeah, so this is one, too, where certainly we need to keep an eye on when this injury report actually comes, when we get this injury report, because they are on a back-to-back. But assuming that their normal guys play and then, we have Lowry back, it's an appealing matchup. I think getting to $7,200 Hero, point guard, shooting guard is pretty appealing. He's playing a bunch of minutes. Lowry coming back could cut into that a little bit, but I don't expect it to make a huge difference. You're probably still getting, 34 to 36 minutes from Hero. So decent price tag there. Bam at 7,800 looks pretty appealing. Butler up to 8,700, I think is a little bit more difficult to get to. He has been playing more minutes recently. We got him up to 35 last game. Also have no idea if he's going to play today or not. But Bam and Hero, I think, are the two that look the most interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you there. And like you said, keep an eye on that injury report as they are on the back end of the back-to-back. Definitely a non-zero chance Jimmy Butler takes the Saturday off, just knowing Jimmy Butler. But onto the Orlando side of things we go. Wendell Carter Jr. is off the injury report. That means no more Mo Wagner season for us. And with Wendell Carter Jr. being off the injury report, this team is virtually healthy. I mean, they're pretty much fully healthy, and that's why this team is not getting that much ownership the way things stand right now. In a Miami spot, I don't have any real interest in anyone. You want to make an argument for maybe one of those guards off the bench, sure, but I can't really justify that even. You want to go to Boncaro, 7,800 and 7,900. A tough Miami spot on the other side, I'm still skeptical. I'm just not interested in this Orlando team. The ownership indicates it that way as well. Do you have any reason to differ here?
No, I don't see anything that looks good whatsoever. I mean, it's sure if you're playing 150 lineups and you happen to see you have a lineup with like Bancaro, who cares? That's fine. But like on a 9-game slate, there's just going to be so many better plays than taking a correctly priced Orlando team going up against Miami. Wendell Carter returning to the lineup does cut into production a little bit for the other starters. But yeah, they're just all correctly priced. And, as far as the bench guys go, last game, you saw Cole Anthony only play 21 and a half minutes. Jalen Suggs found his way into the closing lineup and played 30. You're not going to get that consistently, but they're both priced up enough where like on average, you're probably getting 24, 25 minutes from Suggs. That's not making him look very good at 4,400. You're getting 24 to 26 from Anthony. Doesn't look great at 5,500. Banchero, Franz Wagner, Fultz, Carter, like they're all just correctly priced, if not overpriced, for a very difficult matchup against Miami on a slate where we have plenty to choose from.
Agreed there. No disagreement on my end. Thanks so much for everyone who's joining us. Hit that like and subscribe button. And as like I said earlier, check out our presenting sponsor, Prize Picks. They definitely have some very exciting prop-based contests. I definitely think the prop-based contest is taking over the complete, fantasy sports space in the last 18 months or so. So definitely a game that I think is, if you play it right, I definitely think you can have a lot of success there. And sometimes I think those are easier than building DFS the way things DFS stand right now. But we'll see how that evolves in the near future. But on the next game we go, Utah taking on Charlotte, Utah at Charlotte. Utah's only favored by 2.5 here. It's a great, I think a total around 231. So definitely something, I think a lot of fantasy points goodness that's going to occur in this game. And Jordan Clarkson is questionable on the Utah side of things. And that's important news here because if he's going to be in, I'm going to like going to Clarkson. I think 7,700 and 7,400 on FanDuel. I like that FanDuel price tag in a Charlotte spot. I think I don't mind getting above the owner. Right now, we don't have that much ownership projected to him. I think it might go up. I have no issues going to him in a Charlotte spot. But marketing all the way up to $9,800 and $9,000. Shown the ability to pay that off quite a bit this season and pretty much a lock to win most improved player in the year, in my opinion. I think you can certainly go to him in a Charlotte spot. Charlotte team's not getting that much ownership, but I think they certainly can find a way to pay this off against this Utah team not getting much ownership. I think there's certainly some really good spots here. It's going to come down to the Clarkson situations. Clarkson's out. The rest of the starters are going to look very, very good. But we don't have that in a situation right now. Talk to me about the couple situations if Clarkson's in versus Clarkson's out.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with Utah is they're really expensive. So I think that's why the ownership is relatively low. But it is a great matchup. It is a spot that I want to target in tournaments because of that low ownership and the great matchup. If Clarkson's in, Markkanen's still okay. Like, we haven't seen a huge bump for Lauri Markkanen without Clarkson on the floor this year. He's around 1.2 DraftKings points per minute either way. The issue you're going to run into with Markkanen is similar to what I was talking about with Tyrese Halliburton, where the other day it was pretty easy to pay close to 10K for Markkanen because it was a shorter slate. You didn't have other, good pay-up options. Today you have better pay-up options and you have a bigger slate, so it makes them more difficult to get to. But if you get there, certainly get a high ceiling. Walker Kessler at 6,900 is another one where he's definitely got a ceiling here in a good matchup against Charlotte. Gives you a ton of block upside. Charlotte has no semblance of defense whatsoever, but he is 6,900, so pretty much correctly priced. Same goes for Olynyk at 6K. If Clarkson is out, everybody looks marginally better, but I don't think it's enough that, this isn't a spot where I think if Clarkson's out, you go from not really playing a ton of Utah to jamming them in. It does just make everybody look a little bit better across the board. Chris Dunn has been playing great on a point per minute basis. He's still not getting enough minutes for me to feel comfortable going to him. If he's low owned without Clarkson, fine, take some shots. It's a good matchup. He's probably playing around 24 minutes, but it's just very tough. I know he's played really well with Utah, but you have somebody that for his entire NBA career is a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. And now he's just out there lighting it up with Utah, but it's not like he's a good shooter. It's not like this is somebody who at previous stops in his NBA career just didn't get opportunities offensively. That's not his game. So it is a situation where I do expect him to come back to earth from a production standpoint, and his price tag is rising. But at low ownership, if Clarkson's out and you want to gamble on him, fine. Horton Tucker at 6,700. Getting expensive, coming off of a good game, still only played 30 minutes in that game. So I'm always hesitant to go to him at this price tag as well, because we just haven't seen that much playing time for him, even when guys are out. He's getting around 28 to 30 minutes. It's not like they're running him out there for 36 or something. So it's a good matchup for Utah. I don't mind getting these guys in tournaments, but there's no one price tag that looks that appealing to me. I think they're pretty much correctly priced at this point.
Agreed. And I think certainly one of these guys can have a game that they pop off against Charlotte. Charlotte's pretty piss poor on the defensive end. So definitely, like you said, we'll see what value opens up if Markkanen becomes more feasible to jam in if Clarkson that's in play. Sneaky option might be Olynyk. He's one guy who can always have an outlier fantasy performance here and there. And I think in a Charlotte spot, he certainly seems like a candidate to do so. Onto the Charlotte side we go. Last game, we saw Mark Williams leave the game, but return, but then leave the game again, I believe. And he's questionable at this moment. If Mark Williams is out, I think a lot of our lineups, center lineups, are going to potentially start with Nick Richards. Maybe non-zero chance they can start PJ Washington at the 5, but I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. I don't expect Kai Jones to start, but Nick Richards, I think, will be the presumed starter if Mark Williams is out. Nick Richards comes in at $4,000 on DraftKings, $5,400 on FanDuel. Looks like a solid, awesome play if he's going to start. Keep in mind, Nick Richards does have issues keeping his hands to himself. He does draw a lot of fouls. Not draw a lot of fouls. Picks up a lot of fouls. And something to keep an eye on with Nick Richards if he does start. Don't be shocked if he picks up a bunch of fouls in a hurry. But in this Charlotte side of things, Rozier, Oubre, 8,300 and 7,800 for these two guys. Gordon Hayward comes in at 6,700. In a situation here, I like sprinkling them in. You're getting quite a bit of ownership. I don't know if I'll get around to this much. I think getting around the field maybe is it, but I like getting under the field on some of these guys. I think they're appropriately priced for their roles, but I don't feel that strong. I think the field is very excited to go to the Charlotte team today.
Yeah, good matchup, reasonable pricing here. The Mark Williams piece is obviously huge. We have Mark Williams projected in right now for projections, but for ownership, I'm guessing we don't because we have 31% ownership coming into Nick Richards. I think that's a very good ballpark guess at where Richards' ownership comes in if Williams is out. Obviously, if Williams is in, that's not the case, but Richards would look great at 4K. He played about 16 and a half minutes in the second half last game without Williams. If he avoids foul trouble, I'd expect him to be in that like 30-minute range today. So he'd look like a really good value. If Williams is in, then you get that situation where Mark Williams is fine at 5,900. If you want to hope Williams gets in foul trouble or something and play some Nick Richards at 4K, okay, that's whatever. But neither one would stand out. Williams would look, decent in tournaments, but Richards clearly a top value if Williams is out. But then you get to the rest of this team where they're just playing huge minutes, which, when you're in March and you're talking about a bad team, it always feels risky to go to them. But we've just seen such good, like so many minutes from these guys. Kelly Oubre, again, 38 minutes last game against Detroit. PJ Washington only played 28. But he's 2 games removed from playing 36. Then he had a game where he was in some foul trouble and played 30. Last game, he didn't close the first half. That's just a weird rotation where the second unit was hot. PJ Washington didn't come back for whatever reason, but typically you're getting, low to mid 30s from PJ Washington. Gordon Hayward's playing low to mid 30s. Terry Rozier is typically playing mid to upper 30s. These guys are just playing really, really big minutes, and price tags haven't adjusted that much for LaMelo being out. So 8,300 on Rozier seems fine. No issues with 6,700 for Hayward, 7,800 for Oubre, 6,400 for Washington. Those are all just solid enough price tags in a good matchup against Utah. Dennis Smith Jr. is giving you 24-ish minutes off the bench. He is basically Chris Dunn at a cheaper price tag. I don't think he's a great play, but there is a path to him having a good game at 4,700.
Yeah, I think that's a great breakdown for Charlotte. I think we're going to have to move on to Boston and Atlanta. But before we get to Boston, I want to talk to you guys about an exciting DraftKings offer, especially for those of you guys who live in Massachusetts. Massachusetts just went live with sports betting earlier this week, and we have an exciting offer for you guys to take advantage of where you shouldn't miss out on, where you can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. I think that's just free money, and there's nothing better than free money in this world. So do not miss out on that opportunity. You better be living in Massachusetts. You got to be 21 years or older. You got to be a first-time DraftKings Sportsbook customer. Make that deposit of $5 or more on a pregame money line potentially, and then place a wager on any market. There's a bunch of college basketball games, a bunch of NBA games. You want to bet on the Celtics? Go ahead. You'll receive $200 in bonus bets instantly. So do not miss out on that. And it's free money for those of you guys who live in Massachusetts. That offer is live right now. You can find that in a link in the bio for us. Definitely take advantage of that. You do not want to miss out on these free money opportunities. We'll have a bunch more, but this one is definitely the one you want to take advantage of. Do not miss out on this if you guys live in Massachusetts. And if you guys are someone or know someone who has a gambling problem, make sure to refer 1-800-GAMBLER. And Out of the Boston and Atlanta side we go.
Sorry, so we just got an update to the boom bust tool and ownership and stuff. So with Mark Williams projected in, we have him at 7%. We obviously have none coming into Richards. So yeah, like just to reiterate, if Williams is in, perfectly fine tournament play, not a priority. If he's out, though, you get Richards as a priority.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Appreciate that update. But onto the Boston and Atlanta side we go. This game has only one injury news on the slate right now, and that's the injury to Robert Williams. Boston's pretty fully healthy. Jason Tatum leads the way at 10-6. Jaylen Brown comes in at 9K. Al Horford comes in at 5,800. The only guy who's really manning some ownership is Tatum at 10-6. And it's a team where I have some interest, but it's probably just going to be Tatum. I think there'll be enough value to get Tatum in. I don't mind getting to Jaylen Brown. I know it's an elevated price tag. We've seen Brown in the high 8s for a lot of the season, but it could certainly be the Jaylen Brown game in this matchup against Atlanta.
Yeah, when this team's healthy, those are typically the two that I'm interested in. Obviously the offense runs through those guys. 9K is a very reasonable price tag for Jaylen Brown. I was heavy on him the other day, and he was absolute garbage against Portland. But it is what it is. Like, he's going to have some bad games. But shooting guard, small forward eligible, relatively low ownership, and less than half the ownership of Jason Tatum. Obviously, I think Jason Tatum's a better play, and I'm happy to get to him as well. But it just kind of naturally creates an interesting leverage situation too, where certainly Tatum and Brown can have a good game at the same time. It's a good matchup. They both have a big enough role in the offense that can happen. But you're going to have some percentage of games where Jaylen Brown not only goes off at low ownership, but he also just kind of cuts into Jason Tatum's production because he's having that type of game. So you get that added benefit as well. I really like Jaylen Brown in tournaments. And again, I like Jason Tatum as well, but the Brown ownership really stands out. Outside of that, there's nothing that looks super appealing. Smart coming in at 5,900, White at 57, Brogdon at 6K. They all are priced about where they should be. If they fall into a tournament lineup here or there, there's no problem with that. Al Horford had a big game last time out in 24 minutes, didn't play it all down the stretch, but you can expect potentially increased production for him with him not having to share the floor with Robert Williams, but his price tag's come up enough too at 5,800 where I don't think he's any sort of priority.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different story over there on FanDuel. Some of the backcourt is getting some ownership there, especially White and Brogdon. I'm willing to look elsewhere, but a lot easier to get in Brown and Tatum in those lineups as their price tags are pretty favorable there. Not much news on this team. Fairly healthy team outside of Rob Williams, but onto the Atlanta side we go. Boston's only favored by 5 here with a pretty hefty total of 236.5. So this game should move. Atlanta's now being called, but it's been 2 weeks of Quinn Snyder here. They've been playing a little bit better of late. I think they've been winning more games, but it's Trae Young comes in at $9,100. Where you get a 3-point bonus, I certainly think you can take some chances there. It's a tough Boston spot on the other side of things. DeJounte Murray can certainly get you that outlier double-double, pick up some extra steals and peripheral stats. He's sub 8K at 7,900. Different story over there on FanDuel, 9.6 and 8.7 for these guys. I looked at those two guys, but John Collins has fallen all the way to $4,000. Can we go to him? I mean, you can, but his minutes haven't been anywhere near 30 plus. We have him right now projected around 25, but if you're looking for some guy who can get an outlier performance, it could certainly be John Collins at 4K. He can find a way to maybe a high 20s fantasy points, and you might be content with that. But so the Atlanta team is a tough Boston spot. How do you feel about the studs and everyone else?
Yeah, tough spot, back-to-back. Also, I believe a 3 and 4. Just really, really tough spot for Atlanta. Trae Young looks fine at 9,100. Reasonable price tag. My biggest concern with him is just Quinn Snyder hasn't been playing him as many minutes. We saw it again yesterday. He played 32.8 minutes. Young is somebody that earlier in the year under McMillan, you could, in competitive games, pretty much count on 34 or 35 minutes. In some games, he'd be up, 37, 38. He just hasn't been getting that. He's in that 32 to 34 minute range consistently with Quinn Snyder. And when you're talking about somebody in this 9K price range, clearly there's still upside for Trae Young just based on his ability to score and get assists. But those minutes, really matter when the people priced around you are playing 36, 37 in competitive games. So that's another, reason to kind of be hesitant on Young in addition to the matchup and the back-to-back and 3 and 4. But still plenty of upside at that price tag. DeJounte Murray at 7,900, pretty fairly priced. You mentioned John Collins, and he's really interesting because yesterday we got a bunch of ownership coming into him. He did find his way into the closing lineup for the second game in a row, got to about 28 minutes. So that's a positive and a negative. Like, we've seen 2 games in a row where he's closed. The negative part is that even in the games he's closed, he's played like 28 and 29 minutes, and there's no guarantee he closes. You're still going to see some games where it's Sadiq Bey. You're probably at some point going to see games where it's Bogdanovich, although that hasn't been the case under Snyder so far. But the big difference right now between yesterday and today, I wasn't really interested in Collins yesterday because you have a very volatile player, both in terms of his ability to score fantasy points and his playing time. And because of the lack of value on yesterday's slate, you had a bunch of ownership coming into him. So it was just like, okay, well, I'll just take my chances and hope that variance breaks my way and he doesn't play a bunch of minutes or he doesn't play well. Today it's different because you have that same sort of volatility and you're getting 5% ownership. If you tell me John Collins plays 28 minutes at 4K and he's only 5% owned, I would want a lot of that. Now, obviously, there's no guarantee he plays 28 minutes, but I'm a lot more willing to take that risk if nobody else is playing him than when, 1/5 of the field is playing him. So I don't think he's a great play or anything like that, but I'm certainly tempted to take some shots at him at 5% owned as opposed to the 15 to 20, whatever he was projected for yesterday. Clint Capella, 3% owned at 6,500, always reasonable in tournaments, as is Okongwu. But the problem is that on average, neither of them end up looking that good because on average, you're getting like 26, 27 minutes for Capella and then like 21 for Okongwu. Yesterday, you got 29 for Capella, only about 18.5 for Okongwu. They both have upside in that if you get the random 34-minute game from Capella, 6,500 works. If you get the random 24-minute game from Okongwu, 3,700 looks great. But on average, neither of them look very good.
Yeah, I just wanted to pass on a clarification on that Massachusetts offer. I did say you bet $5 and get $200 in bets, bonus bets instantly. Those $200 in bonus bets will be paid out in eight $25 bonus bets that will expire in 7 days. So I just wanted to make sure you guys had that clarification and do not miss out on that offer. It will expire very soon. So thanks for that breakdown there. And on to the next game we go. Do you have any final thoughts on Boston, Atlanta?
No.
All right. On to Chicago and Houston we go. Kevin Porter Jr., I believe, is probable for this matchup here. Chicago's favored by 7.5 with a 224 total. Chicago comes in just led by Levine, Vooch, and DeRozan. I like going to DeRozan at 8,200. Vooch is getting some ownership in this Houston spot at $8,000. Different story over there on FanDuel. Levine comes in at 83, 81. 83 and 81 for Levine and DeRozan, respectively. Vooch is pretty expensive at $8,900. Kind of just pick your spots where to pick Levine and DeRozan, but I like going to DeRozan, and that's really about it. You can certainly play Levine, but 8,700 seems like the tippy top where I look to. I'd rather take those $500 with DeRozan in a Houston spot. But everyone else, I can't really have much interest in. If you want to play Caruso, I mean, you can do that, but I really am hesitant to even consider that. How do you feel about this Chicago team? Great Houston spot, though. I think any one of those big three can have a huge game.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher on him than you, but I'm with you. Like DeRozan looks good at 8,200. I do prefer Levine if you can find the $500. He has better positional eligibility with shooting guard, small forward, but also we've seen over the last month or so a decent chunk of DeRozan's usage going to Levine, and I don't want to read into it too much. It's not a huge sample or anything, but it kind of just seems like DeRozan may be getting worn down a little bit down the stretch, and Levine is finally healthy after, being banged up to start the year. So we have seen, where for the season, both guys have about a 28% usage rate. Recently in the games they've played together, you're talking 30 to 31% usage for Levine, 25 to 26 for DeRozan. Again, that's not saying not to play DeRozan. Like, he's still in a really good spot. He's still relatively inexpensive, still can have a big game, but we're basically just seeing like peak Levine right now in terms of his usage, in terms of the way he's playing. So I like getting to him. Vooch should do whatever he wants against this front court. He's only 8K. So all three of those guys look really good. Alex Caruso, like you said, pulling some ownership. I don't hate it because he's only $3,400. Like, he should probably be more, but you have to keep in mind there is risk here as well. He started last game, still only played 17.5 minutes. You had Kobe White play the final 18 minutes of the game. That's not normally going to happen, but when you have the Sunmu, when you have White competing for minutes with Beverly and Caruso, it just means that you're going to see some games where you don't get the playing time that you want because, none of those guys have to be on the floor down the stretch. It is likely, like I would expect in games where Chicago is playing from ahead, that you're more likely to get closing minutes from Caruso. But last game we saw them beat Denver and it was just, White staying in. So that could have just been that the second unit got hot. They left White in there, but I just expect the playing time to be volatile between all of those guys. So cautious to go to Caruso, but I would say that, he is underpriced. But really the big three here with Vooch, DeRozan, Levine, I just want to be getting to a lot of these guys in a great spot against Houston.
Yeah, you definitely have no issues if you want to get way above the field and against the Houston spot on any of those big three guys. Certainly have a huge upside. If you can pick and choose one of those three guys, can get you 50 plus fantasy points against this Houston spot for sure, for as long as the game stays close. But going over to the Houston side of things, Alfred Şengün pretty much doesn't play over 30 minutes anymore. Did not close the game, I believe, last night against was it last? Did they play last night?
No, they played 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago, and he did not. He just only played 25 minutes. So I kind of looking elsewhere in the center spot. Kevin Porter Jr. being probable 7,300. Jalen Green 6,900. Those are the two guys who are going to lead the usage on the team in potentially minutes. But this team's not getting much ownership. And in a Chicago spot, I certainly think taking a chance on a guy like Jalen Green, I have no issues doing so at 6,900. I would have preferred if Porter Jr. was out, obviously, but 7,100 on FanDuel, it's a spot where I'm willing to take some chances. How do you feel about Porter and Jalen Green, and any positive sentiment towards Şengün, or are you pretty much done with him for now?
So, Porter coming back makes this team not the same level of priority they would have been. Jalen Green still certainly gives you plenty of upside, but, tougher to get to with Porter back. I'm fine playing Şengün still. He didn't play down the stretch last game. Jabari Smith was playing out of his mind, best game of Jabari Smith's career. They just left in the small lineup. 2 games ago, you got 33 and a half minutes from Şengün against Brooklyn, and that's a game where Brooklyn blew them out. So Şengün actually lost a few minutes down the stretch. I think that part of the reason Şengün's minutes haven't been there recently is just a lot of blowouts, a lot of foul trouble in non-blowout games or in blowout games. So I don't totally buy into him just not playing minutes anymore. I think that if this game's competitive and he avoids foul trouble, more often than not, you're getting enough minutes from him for him to look good. He is certainly volatile though, because you can foul Vooch pretty easily. You can get blown out easily because you're Houston. So there's a lot of risk going there. And then, Porter coming back knocks down his usage rate a little bit as well, though he is still a 1.2 to 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy. So at low ownership, I'm actually interested in Şengün just because I think the sentiment is that those minutes are really, really risky. And they are, but I don't think they're quite as risky as it would seem if you look at, his recent games. Outside of that, nothing that really stands out. Jabari Smith has a path to more minutes now that Eric Gordon's gone and they're playing him more minutes alongside Tari Eason. Same goes for Tari Eason. You're getting more minutes from him. But both of those price tags have come up a bit to where they just sort of look like secondary options that you're not building around.
Yeah, and I think you give a lot of valid reasons why I might consider Şengün a bit more, but I'm still skeptical.
He's risky. It's a spot where, like, if Şengün were somehow getting 20% ownership, I would just run the other direction. Mm-hmm. But if people just aren't going to play him because they're so aware of those negative outcomes, I'm willing to take a chance on he played 34 minutes today.
For sure. And that's definitely in his range of outcomes for not denying that. I think recency bias is in my head of just we're not seeing those minutes, and certainly in a Vooch spot, he can certainly be out there quite a bit more. So we'll see how that breaks down. Who mainly plays the backup 5 for this team of late when Şengün's not on there? Have they just been rolling out Jabari Smith or
Garuba a little bit and Jabari Smith?
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so like last game, you got 10 minutes from Garuba. You got 26 from Şengün. So you basically got 12 of Jabari Smith. Mm-hmm. The game before that, the game that Şengün played 34 minutes, Garuba did not play in the second half outside of garbage time. They went to Jabari Smith again.
All right.
Which is good for Jabari Smith also.
Oh, for sure. For those of you guys who haven't checked out the Odd Shop show happening Monday through Friday, where you'll see the likes of Laufey, Lindy, Aton, Ben, even Greg, just behind, just talking about our special Odd Shopper premium product and just excellent bets to take advantage of throughout the evening. So definitely check out the Odd Shop on our Odd Shopper premium channel, our sister betting component, Stokastic. So definitely do not miss on that. It is some great, excellent betting content over there. And Adam does a nice one for NBA Bet Pro as well. So definitely check that out as well. Hit that like and subscribe button for us. And onto the Dallas and Memphis side we go. Kyrie Irving was on Twitch. Kyrie Irving was being Kyrie Irving as he made some comments about parlays and sports bettors. But tonight, Luka Doncic is out, and Kyrie Irving looks like a fantastic play. Kyrie Irving is 9.9 and 9,700. I think 30, 35 real life shot attempts are on the table for Kyrie. Anywhere from 38 to 40 minutes are on the table. I believe he played all of the second half, most of the second half, besides like the last few minutes against New Orleans after Luka got hurt. I think Kyrie Irving is a strong starting point on the slate at $9,900 and $9,700. I think there'll be enough value to get to him. I think you could play some other guys such as Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. We saw Josh Green's minutes kind of like he lost the rotational minutes in the second half. We saw Davis Bertans come in and knock down some threes as Jason Kidd was trying to chip away. I don't know what the rotation looks like outside of guys for Irving, Hardaway. That's it. I'm really skeptical on who else is going to get those consistent minutes just because of what happened last game. But I think Irving looks outstanding, and I'm willing to get well above the field on Kyrie Irving tonight.
Yeah, keep in mind he is questionable, but assuming he plays, he does look fantastic. You've seen about 1.3 fantasy points per minute with Luka there, but you expect increased usage, increased assist opportunities. Should play a lot of minutes, assuming he's good to go. 9,900, certainly happy to get to him if he's in. The rest of this team, like you said, I don't know what to do with them. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. should play a bunch of minutes. He's 5,200, shooting guard, small forward. Started last game, played 40 minutes. No issue going back to him. I think he's a very good play. Christian Wood at 5,400 is pulling 39% or 42% ownership right now. I don't know what to make of his minutes. On the one hand, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play more because they need more offense without Luka. On the other hand, you have Maxi Kleber back. So last game, you got 26 minutes from Christian Wood. He played the final 15 minutes of the game, but Kleber was out. Here you have Powell, you have Kleber. So I think there's a good chance you're getting around, low to mid 20s from Christian Wood. And at 5,400, that's fine. He still gives you a ceiling. He is center only on DraftKings, which is a little bit problematic, but he's just one that I think is really risky. Like if he's actually going to pull this much ownership, I'm hesitant to go there just because I have no idea how many minutes he's going to play. We know that Jason Kidd doesn't typically like playing him, but Luka being out does open up more offensively. That Dallas has very limited guys that can replace any semblance of offense. You have Kyrie, obviously. You have Tim Hardaway that can take on a bigger role offensively. And then you basically have Christian Wood. It's not Dwight Powell. It's not Josh Green. It's not Ntilikina. It's not Morris. It's not Holiday. It's not Bertans. Like these guys all are so bad offensively and just can't do anything. So wouldn't surprise me if you see Christian Wood become a bigger priority in the rotation just because he can actually play offense. But not entirely sure what to make of that. The cheap price tag, though, certainly lowers the level of risk. But beyond Irving, Hardaway, Christian Wood, I don't think there's much to like. You have a cheap Reggie Bullock. You have a cheap Josh Green if you want to try and, hope that those guys actually produce fantasy points when they're on the floor. But they both are pretty bad at doing that. Maxi's 3,300. I expect probably low 20s minutes from him. Makes him not super appealing. It's kind of, to me, Kyrie and Hardaway I feel good about. Christian Wood, I like the ceiling. I just am not confident in his minutes, so there's risk. But I like the ceiling. Green and Bullock are like that next tier of like the minutes are going to be there, but who the hell knows what they're going to do. And then, Kleber, Powell are like the bottom of the barrel, last guy in type pieces.
For sure. And if Kyrie Irving is out, I think that's certainly on the table. He's questionable, right? And I think, like you said, Christian Wood, Tim Hardaway Jr. are going to look fantastic. And I think Jaden Hardy will get the start, and he'll immediately will become my favorite value play on the slate by eons at $3,100. And I believe at a very favorable $3,800 on FanDuel. Hardy's a very good, he can definitely get to the hole, get his own bucket type of guy. And he's going to be asked to play as many minutes as he can in this Memphis spot. So I do think this Kyrie Irving news is really important because if he plays, he looks phenomenal as a starting point of your lineups. If he's out, this team becomes like the best value team on the slate outside of maybe Detroit.
Yeah, if he's out, you get to guess at who gets minutes out of Justin Holiday, Jaden Hardy, Frank Ntilikina, Theo Pinson. It'll be a blast. But like if he's out, Jaden Hardy probably steps into more minutes and looks really good at 3,100.
Yeah, and that's the thrill of March NBA DFS, Adam. That's how good tournaments are won. But let's go to the Memphis side of things. Ja Morant remains to be out. I believe he's going to be out for at least 3 more games. But Ja Morant has not been the center of attention for the team. It's been Dylan Brooks in his post-game comments of what he said recently. But Dylan Brooks has not been able to perform up to par without Ja Morant. it's really been the Tyus Jones show. He's priced up to $71 and $7,600, and this team continues to be out with continues to be without Steven Adams. Xavier Tillman's been getting some minutes, but he has been struggling to maintain those minutes, as we saw him getting the first half foul trouble last game. And then we also saw the ability of Santi Aldama to be really efficient. Now we're in a situation here. I just want to give you guys a shout out to our sponsor PrizePicks, where our favorite expected win percentage right now, if you're going to build out a PrizePicks card, our data and tools team recommends to take the under on Tillman's points. And that updates throughout the day. Definitely check out our Pick'em Pro package if you don't have sports betting available in your state, where you get access to PrizePicks and some other player prop based contests as well. So that actually has evolved. And another top option to go to is the over on 2.5 Desmond Bane 3-pointers, as we haven't projected at 3.5. So a couple PrizePicks starting points for you over there on the Memphis side of things. But Memphis in a Dallas spot, still without John Morant. I think a couple of these starters can be good, but they're not getting much ownership. FanDuel's a different story, priced a bit more favorably. Just good tournament options. No one that I'm too excited to go to. Aldama's currently get some ownership. I think I'd kind of steer clear of that. I think there's some better options and other value that will open up. But how do you feel about this Memphis team? And do we just go back to Tyus Jones and that's really about it?
I actually like Memphis quite a bit here at low ownership. I think this is a really appealing spot against Dallas. I expect them to play faster without Luka, and they cannot defend. They've been bad defensively all year. They got worse at the deadline in terms of defense. And I just expect a faster paced game without Luka as well. There's still a lot of opportunities available here. Dylan Brooks only pulling 6% ownership. He's 5,100. The playing time should be there. It's just a matter of, do his shots fall? But coming off of a solid game last time out, 2 games ago, he disappointed, but he still led the team in field goal attempts, and he was like 4,200 in that game. As long as the ownership isn't there on Brooks, I have no issue just hoping that his shots fall, because you know that he's going to take them when Morant is out. Tyus Jones still looks good and isn't pulling much ownership at 6%. 7,100, on DraftKings, I think there's some sticker shock there, but he has started 35 games without John Morant since the start of last season. He's averaged 31.4 minutes per game, 1.06 DraftKings points per minute. This season, he started 12 games without him. He's averaged 33.5 minutes per game, 1.24 DraftKings points per minute. So I expect that point per minute production to come down a bit, but you're just getting 33, 34 minutes from him in these games without Morant, and he's not pulling much ownership. Jackson and Bane are both expensive, so they're not getting a lot of ownership, which is fine, but they still both give you high ceilings. Desmond Bane's been very disappointing the last couple of games, but with Morant out, not only do you get increased usage, you're also getting him as the backup point guard behind Tyus Jones. So there are plenty of opportunities for him. Overall this year in 8 games without Morant, 1.18 DraftKings points per minute from Desmond Bane. Jaren Jackson has been in for 7 of those games, 1.15 DraftKings points per minute in those games for Bane. So I still think the ceiling is there. He's just expensive. Like, you need him to have a good game, obviously. Same goes for Jaren Jackson. He's about a 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy without Morant. He's got a matchup against a terrible Dallas front court. He's getting backup center minutes with Brandon Clark out. He's just priced up, so there's a lot of risk, but also not a lot of ownership. I think this is a really, really appealing tournament team. Xavier Tillman's okay, but he's center only again on DraftKings. I was liking Tillman when he had power forward eligibility, but now the opportunity cost of center makes him a lot more difficult to get to. Santi Aldama, 4,300, has a path to more minutes as well with Clark out, getting a little bit of ownership. But I actually really like this Memphis team from a tournament standpoint. I'm not saying like, oh, I think they should all be way more popular. I get why they're not. But I think this is a really appealing game that has the potential to be a lot higher scoring than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point on why you should be taking some chances on the Memphis team tonight. And I think there's no reason why any of these guys can pop off for 50 fantasy points, especially Bane and Jackson definitely have that in the bag without John Morant taking the floor for them. So I think you made an excellent point. With no Luka there, expect Dallas to play faster. And they're going to play even faster if Kyrie Irving is out. So it's going to make for a very, very appealing Dallas spot for sure. On to the next game we go. Hit that like and subscribe button for us as we wrap up this Saturday strategy show slate for you guys. On to OKC and New Orleans we go. OKC is going to be taking some chances with the return of Jalen Williams. That's their small forward, Jalen Williams. He should be returning. There's been a lot of talk how he's been this kind of the jewel of the draft class. He's been very impressive of late. They're still potentially vying for a play-in game spot. So OKC is not in tank mode, in my opinion, but you never know. And SGA comes in at $9,200. I don't know what's going on and why his price tag dropped so much, but he certainly looks like an outstanding option to go to at 9,200 against this New Orleans team. He's really just the guy I want to go to. And another OKC story, SGA, and kind of move on. Giddey has gone up to 8,200. He was really impressive against Golden State. 7,100 for Jalen Williams. Dort comes in at 5,900. And we know what Mark Dagnall does with that rest of the team. It's just so tough to predict. I just look at SGA and move on, and there's no real reason to get cute elsewhere. Do you have any reason to justify to take some chances on Giddey or Jalen Williams?
So I mean, to start with SGA, completely agree. This is just a incorrect price tag. You have him at basically the same price as Trae Young, but playing more minutes and better. Also, a nice matchup here against the Pels. So really, really like SGA. I do think, like when you compare, Trae Young's the obvious comparison, and Young's getting about 9% ownership. That is a spot in tournaments where, like, if you need to save ownership, Trae Young's not a 2-to-1 dog to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But in most lineups, I'm going to just prefer getting to SGA because he looks better here. Beyond that, though, you do have elevated price tags, and that does make it tough to get much. Josh Giddey has, at times, been playing big minutes recently, played 38 in that game against Golden State. He does still give you a ceiling, but he's pretty much priced for it. Like, to me, when you compare him to Desmond Bane, I think I'm probably more interested in Desmond Bane, but they're similar in that, you're paying a premium, but they still have a ceiling that can just destroy the salary. Like, either of these guys can go for 50 plus fantasy points, at which point you don't care if they were 7,500 or 8,500. You just probably need them. Jalen Williams has played really well recently, but his price tags come up. We see a nice bump in usage for him when SGA is out, but now SGA is back. So I think it's tough to pay that salary with SGA in. Dagnall did talk a few games ago, right after Jalen Williams got hurt, about the plan being to use Jalen Williams at the 5 for a bit without Kenrich Williams. So maybe you see an uptick in rebounding. Maybe you see a little bit more production from him. It's still not enough for me to be able to get to him at 7,100, but it will be interesting to pay attention to. I don't really have any interest in this team outside of SGA and maybe mixing in a little bit of Giddey.
Yeah. Josh Engelman just taking shots at Theo Pinson, calling him the Mavs mascot, just was the highlight of this morning. That is a top YouTube comment. That is hilarious, to say the least, calling him the Mavs mascot. But it's kind of factual. I think Josh is kind of right, as Pinson is probably one of the best NBA cheerleaders, bench cheerleaders they have in the league. But I think you ironed all the high-level points for this OKC team. Onto the New Orleans side we go. I mean, there's a 233 total, and New Orleans is only favored by 2 points here. And that's probably because of the Brandon Ingram questionable news. Ingram left that game after starting off real strong. He was one of the highest owned players on the slates across the board on every site, it felt like. And he just took the game off. I mean, he got hurt, but Ingram goes in at 8,500 and 8,200. If he plays and if we hear there's no minutes limit, I'll take some chances on him. But now if he's out, CJ McCollum just went berserk. Yeah, towards the end there. He had a post-game comment that he's playing with a smaller splint in his hand that he believes is the reason why he shot better in that game. So at 7,600 and 8,100, I'm going to have to take some chances on McCollum, especially at that 7,600 price tag. He should be able to take up as much as usage as he wants to. But the rest of the team, if Ingram is out, it's going to get pretty intriguing. I expect Richardson, Murphy, Herb Jones, Najee Marshall, all to get some sort of significant minutes run, as those minutes I feel like and will be split among those guys. And the front court, it's tough to maintain. Valanciunas does not play enough minutes, but if he were to somehow play high 20s minutes, the usage will certainly be there for him at 6,700 and 66 on DraftKings and FanDuel. But without Ingram, it's an appealing Pelicans spot taking on OKC. How do we what's your hierarchy here with this New Orleans team?
Yes, I mean, the Ingram news is huge, but I really like this team in tournaments. If Ingram's in, I like him at 8,500. He looks good. McCollum looks fine at 7,600 if Ingram's in as well. If Ingram's out, like you said, you expect more production for CJ McCollum. Overall this year, 1.09 DraftKings points per minute from him, but that comes up when you take Zion and Ingram off the floor. So he would look like a good play at 7,600. He would look like a good play at 7,600 if Ingram is in. Without Ingram or Zion on the floor this year, 873 minutes for McCollum, 1.23 DraftKings points per minute, just shy of a 30% assist percentage, just north of a 31% usage rate. He looks fantastic if Ingram's out. Joval at 5% owned, I like in tournaments. He's risky. We can completely throw away last game. Just joke of a game. Joval picked up 2 fouls in a minute and 40 seconds. He did not play the rest of the first quarter or rest of the first half. He started the second half, turned the ball over 4 times in 5 minutes, and just never came back into the game. But even including that game, he's now played 14 games this year with no Larry Nance. He's averaged 26.7 minutes per game. Prior to last game, he played 32 minutes. Is there risk? Sure. Like Jackson Hayes played really well last game. Maybe he earned himself some more minutes. But from a projection standpoint, I don't know how you don't expect at least like 25, 26 minutes from Joval with no Larry Nance. That still allows for 22 or 23 minutes for Jackson Hayes behind him. And at no ownership at 6,700, I'm certainly interested in going there. Jackson Hayes, 3,600 power forward eligible, getting 0 ownership. I guess one of Jackson Hayes or Joval has to get has to be a good play. And neither one's getting ownership because people are afraid to go to Joval because, Joval doesn't play enough minutes. But if Joval doesn't play enough minutes, that means Jackson Hayes is playing more. So one of these guys almost has to be a good play. I guess the scenario where they're not is like Joval gets in foul trouble and Billy Hernangomez steals minutes from Jackson Hayes or something, or they close small, which they could, but that's also less likely to happen if Ingram is out. So more often than not, one of these two guys is going to be good, and neither one's getting ownership. So I wouldn't play Valanciunas and Hayes together, but I like the idea of getting to one of them in tournaments because they're collectively not getting enough ownership. The wings, if Ingram is in, Herb Jones at 5,300 looks okay. Nothing, to write home about, but he did play 37 minutes last game. If Ingram's in, he's probably playing like 30 to 32 here. Trey Murphy started last game. He played a bunch of minutes. He's 5,400. We had Josh Richardson come off the bench, play about 22, 23 minutes. Najee Marshall got mid-20s. So they're all pretty unappealing, but reasonable last guy in pieces if Ingram is in. If Ingram's out, though, you can expect more minutes for all of those guys.
Yeah, that's an awesome breakdown for the Pelicans team. On to the next game we go. I mean, that Ingram news is really crucial. It's up there with the Irving news because it's just going to open up a lot of certainty on what type of value will be there. But onto the Milwaukee and Golden State side we go. It's the Milwaukee team that is going to be pretty much healthy, but Giannis, I believe, is questionable last I checked. So I expect Giannis to play, but he comes in at 11-9, and you know what Giannis can do at 11-8 on FanDuel as well. I know this team fully healthy and expecting all these guys to play around their normal minutes. Maybe Middleton doesn't get there, but team's been healthy. The first time it feels like the big three is playing together, like kind of healthy all season long. Kind of a full bench unit to go. The only guy who I believe is out is Wesley Matthews, and I expect Goran Dragic to suit up for the Bucks as well. And in a Golden State spot, I think if you want to take some chances on Giannis, certainly it. And if Middleton, no, I can't. I'm skeptical at that Middleton price tag. I think there's going to be much better value where you can spend down to. I think my only preference is really Giannis. I can't really justify anyone else right now the way things stand now. If Giannis is out, I do think that will change for sure. The projected ownership and what becomes a good play, what's a good value play and whatnot. But I like going to Giannis, and maybe if Giannis I'm not too keen on him. I just think he has a super upside and there should be enough value to get him in there.
Yeah, if Giannis is in, that's how I see it as well. Like Giannis isn't a priority in the sense of I would expect to be getting tons of him on this slate, at least right now. If we get, Kyrie out and suddenly you have all of that value on Dallas and, other stuff opens up, then obviously Giannis becomes easier to get to. But he'd be, the way things look right now, he would be a play that, like, if you can get there, great. He's, the top projected scorer on the slate, and he's only pulling about 8% ownership. But everywhere else, you've seen salaries come up. Middleton's up to 7,600. He's starting and playing around 30 minutes. But if Giannis is back, you're seeing that point per minute production decrease. Drew Holiday's up to 8,600, which is tough to justify if Giannis is in. Brooke Lopez is up to 7,300. Portis is up to 7K. Like, these guys are really, really tough to get to if Giannis is in. If Giannis ends up being out, you can certainly go back to Middleton, go back to Holiday, go back to Portis and Lopez. They are riskier than they were the other day. And granted, Holiday and Middleton still sucked the other day, even at lower prices. But the prices have adjusted, but not to the point where you just would ignore these guys if Giannis is out. But if Giannis is in, I think it's pretty, I assume I will be ignoring Milwaukee outside of Giannis.
Yeah, I think that's how I'm also looking at it as well. So Let's go on to the Golden State side of things. Another freaky floor slipping injury with Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, the cum bucket just like slipped on the floor, and uh, he pulled a Kevin Durant literally the next day, and he's out for some time. And now that's kind of messed up the rotation, in my opinion, because Anthony Lamb doesn't exist on this team anymore. His 50 games and two-way contract is done. It's been Patrick Baldwin Jr. who's been getting these minutes now. And he's kind of a raw prospect. I do think he can be an NBA rotational player maybe next year for this Golden State team, but he's just your atypical. He's he's probably more of a 4-and-D type of player, in my opinion. He's a pretty lanky type of guy, but he's been getting these minutes instead of Kuminga. Iguodala is just broken. He's literally looks like he's physically in pain running down and up and down the court. And this team is just having a tough time without Andrew Wiggins defensively. But the only thing that's going for this Golden State team is they're at home, and they play amazing when they're at home. And I'm gonna like going to Curry 10-7. I know it's an elevated price tag. I won't get that much above the field. It won't take much, but in a Budenholzer spot where Budenholzer does give up a lot of opposing 3-pointers, I do think the Warriors can thrive. I do think Curry and Thompson can have an outlier game at low ownership. They're much more favorably priced on FanDuel, where 10,000 and 7-3 for Curry and Clay can certainly pan out. Draymond Green's been getting some additional minutes at the 5-6-6 and I believe $7,000 on FanDuel. Looney's been coming off the bench, but it's a tough Golden State team overall to get to. Obviously, the upside Curry and Clay do have whenever they take the court. Break down this Golden State team.
Tournament team to me. I like the ceilings that these guys offer. They're going to be very difficult to get to at their salaries. Curry's playing normal minutes. He's back to playing 34, 35 minutes. He's also $10,700. So I'm with you. He's projected for 1% ownership. We have him with a 6% chance of being optimal. That basically tells me two things. One, he's a good way to differentiate in tournaments. Two, he's extremely unlikely to be in the winning lineup. So it's not somebody that you want to go crazy with. Like, you don't want to just look at this and say like, oh yeah, we're just jamming in Steph Curry today, and that's like the key to the slate. But it is a very good way to be different if you can afford him and you need to save some ownership. Same can be said for Klay Thompson at 8,400, shooting guard, small forward. Really tough to get there, but if Klay Thompson has a Klay Thompson game, you don't care if he's 6K, 9K, 9,500. Like, if he just knocks down 10 threes, none of that matters. So the ceiling is there. It's just, very, very difficult to get there. I'm interested in what the starting lineup looks like. We had Jordan Poole start last game in place of Looney. So 2 games ago, Kuminga started. Then Kuminga got hurt last game. They went with Jordan Poole. Looney started the second half, though. And Looney still only played like 19 minutes. But if Kevon Looney starts this game, and I think he will, I am interested in tournaments. He's only 4,600. You would think they want him out there defensively, particularly if Giannis is playing. And there's a path to success. Nothing I'd go crazy with, but that is a cheap price tag. It wouldn't, if he starts, it wouldn't shock me if you're suddenly getting like, that 28-minute game out of Looney. Poole at 7,100, if he is starting in place of DiVincenzo, which is what we saw in the second half, he's fine. Like, that he's going to get minutes whenever Curry or Clay are off the floor. He's going to call his own number a lot. He's going to miss a lot. He's just a glorified Dillon Brooks that people like.
I disagree. I think Jordan Poole's got a much better handle than Dillon Brooks. And
Dillon Brooks plays defense. But I'm saying like he's a glorified Dillon Brooks in that it's always Jordan Poole time in Jordan Poole's mind, and the dude cannot shoot.
I think he's a light-skinned Alec Burks. I think that's better.
Alec Burks plays defense.
Debatable.
And isn't a high usage guy.
Well, whenever he has his own show, he does, right?
Well, yeah. But Alec Burks does not make it the Alec Burks show when he's playing with Steph Curry.
That's true.
Like, I guarantee Alec Burks could play his entire career next to Steph Curry, and Steph Curry would never get ejected for throwing his mouthpiece out of being pissed off at Alec Burks.
That's fair. But
anyway, Jordan Poole gives you a high ceiling. He's going to shoot.
Would you rather have Jordan Poole or Dillon Brooks on your team?
It depends on the team. Do I think Jordan? Most teams, I think Dillon Brooks fits easier into teams than than Jordan Poole does.
That's fair. I think he's your 3-and-D type of player.
Yeah, I also think the ceiling for Jordan Poole is massively higher than Dillon Brooks. Like, Jordan Poole is still 23. If in 3 years he figures it out, and Jordan Poole still has the potential to be a really good offensive player. Dillon Brooks is not.
I watched Jordan Poole intently at Michigan, and I never thought he was an NBA player. It blew my mind that he went in the first round. because he was just didn't have like the it factor, and he sucked for a long time. But this has been quite like the jump from like college to like what he's making like $30 million a year. I did not expect this out of Jordan Poole ever, but yeah, Jordan Poole, he's got a handle to him, but I think comparing anyone to Dillon Brooks right now, I don't think any player wants to be compared to Dillon Brooks.
Yeah, so that's what's so wild to me. Like Dillon Brooks is just the opposite side of the narrative of Jordan Poole. Like Jordan Poole does so much shit poorly and wrong, and people are just like, yeah, but like sometimes he scores a lot. And then Dillon Brooks like plays good defense, but every stupid thing he does, people just like, oh, he has no value to any team. Like it's, to me, they're very similar in just the ways that they are massively flawed, but like they do have some sort of redeeming quality. But like Dillon Brooks, it's like, how is this guy in the league? The narrative is like, how is this guy in the league? And Jordan Poole is just like, oh yeah, he's just, the next Steph Curry.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think Steph Curry is so good that he's underrated, but that's a conversation for another day. The only narrative around Dillon Brooks is I think people like the league think, like a lot of league players on the league, they think he's like a dirty player.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's that's like a whole separate. My big issue with Jordan Poole is like everybody's like, oh yeah, he's an offensive player. He's good on offense. Blah, blah. He's shooting 32% from three. He has a 55% true shooting percentage. He sucks at shooting, and the thing that he's supposedly good at, is shooting.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great conversation to have. We don't get time to talk about these conversations on our shows, and I thoroughly enjoy them. But we got to wrap up the Sacramento and Phoenix. Sacramento should be the 2 seed.
Jordan Poole's now going to shoot like 12 for 14 from three today.
Yeah, he just hasn't found a way to fit in when Clay and Steph have been healthy, and that's what Steve Kerr has vocally said in press conferences. He just doesn't find a way to fit in. Well, let's wrap up with this final game as we've gone over today on a loaded 9-game slate with a bunch of news. Sacramento taking on Phoenix. Potential, yes, you heard it, Western Conference Finals preview. Sacramento is essentially Denver light. They have all the similar components as Denver does, but they're just modified versions of them. Domantas Sabonis up top at 10K, 10-1. This team's just not going to get much ownership because I think they're appropriately priced /too high. Give us a quick 2 cents breakdown for the Sacramento side.
Yeah, it's just a pretty much correctly priced team. If you get to, is this on the slate?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure because we don't have like positions listed for anybody on Sacramento. If you
get the last game on the slate.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just got confused by the
241 total, huge total.
Sabonis at 10K. Like if you get there, but it's gonna be tough to prioritize. Fox is at 9,400. Again, just a correct price, like you said. If you get to the wings, Barnes, Murray, Herter, the minutes should be there, but also correctly priced. Malik Monk roulette can be fun sometimes. More fun when he makes all of his shots and plays big minutes like he did last game. Less fun when he plays 2 minutes in the first half like he did 2 games ago. So there's nothing that stands out to me at all from this team. It goes without saying, if you get to some Sabonis, some Fox in tournaments, that's fine. If you get to one of the wings here and there, that's fine. But pretty much a correctly priced team.
I just want to clarify also with the Jordan Poole and Dillon Brooks conversation. Jordan Poole's got better taste in women than Dillon Brooks. I just want to let that be known.
Yeah.
But the rest of the side of things, like you nailed it with the Kings side. I think certainly have some tournament appeal here. But I want to flip over to the Phoenix side of things. Unfortunately, Kevin Durant is out, and this guy is he's been injury prone for a lot of his career. But goddamn, you just slip and like you can't even play in your home debut, which is brutal. To the point where I think it might hurt with chemistry come playoff time when they just won't have enough minutes together. I think they might suffer, but I think they hopefully they should be able to figure it out because it'll be kind of a disaster if they can't really have that chemistry heading into playoff time. But we know Devin Booker is going to shoot as much as he can at 9,900, 10-4 over there on FanDuel. I like getting to some Booker. Chris Paul's 7,500. You really are hoping for some sort of double-double, an outlier shooting usage game. DeAndre Ayton comes in at 7,500. Same thing goes for him. Okogie at 5,200. He's been playing a complete turnaround this season in terms of like fantasy point per minute production. You want to take a chance. He's going to be projected to play today, but Phoenix team taking on Sacramento. I think there's some appealing tournament spots, but at that projected Okogie ownership, I still would be willing to look elsewhere. I think we'll get a much better and sound value than Okogie, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I think he's okay at 5,200. I think the ownership's probably a little bit aggressive there. Josh Okogie's not a like even without Kevin Durant, you're not expecting him to be a really high usage guy. You still have Devin Booker taking a ton of usage. You're going to see an uptick for Ayton, who had been down to like 13% in the games that he played with Booker and Durant. So you're going to see him take that usage back. Okogie's still a solid point per minute guy, and if he plays around 30 minutes at 5,200, he can certainly get there. But I'd still be hesitant there. But I like Devin Booker a lot. 9,900 is just still a reasonable price tag. The guy is playing out of his mind right now, with or without Durant, and that the minutes are going to be there. That the shot volume is going to be there. DeAndre Ayton looks better with Durant out. Like I was just saying, you saw Ayton's price tag drop a little bit because of the lack of usage with Durant, and then now Durant's gone. So I don't mind getting to some DeAndre Ayton in a favorable matchup. Chris Paul at 7,500 looks fine. Good matchup again. One spot from last game that does look kind of interesting is what do they do with Terrence Ross? Because we had Monty Williams sort of talking before last game about it being difficult to figure out, exactly how the second unit's going to work, who's going to get minutes, who's not. We saw Terrence Ross and Ish Wainwright be the first two guys off the bench last game. Terrence Ross then also subbed in early in the third quarter when Devin Booker got in foul trouble. But in that first half, you got about 11 and a half minutes from Terrence Ross. If he's going to play 22 to 24 minutes off the bench at 3,800, if he's going to sort of take that Damian Lee role from earlier in the year, he does have some upside at 3,800. So not a spot where I want to go crazy because, one, he can play poorly, and two, the rotation could just be entirely different today. But he did play well in that game. They gave him, the first opportunities in that game. I wouldn't be surprised if you get low 20s in minutes again from Terrence Ross at no ownership at only 3,800.
Well, this is a fun 9-game slate to break down. Some high-level injury news to keep an eye on. Obviously, the Detroit starting lineup, they're missing Ivy, Bogdanovich, and Burks. Keep an eye on the Kyrie Irving news over there. I think that's huge news for us if he plays, if he's out. Brandon Ingram. Did I miss any high-level news points that we didn't get to touch on?
I don't think so. I'm sure a couple will emerge at 1:30 with unexpected stuff. But
do you got any exciting Saturday plans today?
Cleaning and playing MMA.
Cleaning?
Yeah. Should be a great time.
Why don't you hire like cleaners? Do you hire cleaners, or you just like doing it?
Have you seen my NBA graph lately?
No. Okay. Does it look like the Silicon Valley? Did you see the Silicon Valley graph that's been like breaking all the market?
No, I mean I know that like
your bank run. Yeah.
I generally know what happened, but yeah.
I feel your sentiment. I definitely feel that sentiment as well. But no, this is fun. Adam's a Dylan Brooks stan. I'm a Jordan Poole stan. That's kind of how it goes. But it was a fun show, Adam. Good luck today, and thanks so much for everyone who's tuning in. Like and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.